Now, tonight I want to start out by going over a few family search tricks that were new to me. They're not brand new, but they were new to me. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Family Search. I have one friend who complains about they keep changing Family Search. I want you to know, in my opinion, they keep improving Family Search. When we go to Family Tree, on this row here of different things we can do, one of the things is called following. Now, it used to be called watch instead of following, but now it's called following. If I were to open up a screen, I'm going to open up another episode of Family Tree, and it would have been that if I were to go to somebody on my tree, like Mark Wilden, that I would have had a black star, and it would have started out a clear star, and then I marked it dark because it used to be called watch. Now it's called following. But I want to go back to following Mark Wilden. Now I can go to this word following on this row of things that we can do with Family Tree. If I click on following, it gives me a list of people that I am following. And what this amounts to is anyone who has gone into Family Search and made changes to anybody that I have said I am following, then now I can see it on this list and I can see what changes they made. It says that somebody whose name I do not recognize added a child relationship for my mother and my father. It looks like they added my brother and called him deceased. Oh dear. They did this 2 days ago. If he died without me knowing it 2 days ago, I feel really upset. So I think I better come back in here and go to his page and list him as living. And like I said, I do not know who Roach Wharton is, but I need to edit this and say that he is living. He is my brother, and I know he is living. And it says you really shouldn't be doing this unless you're sure. Occasionally, this can happen.
I'm doing it.
Go to the other room.
So far, so good.
One time, I have an 85-year-old uncle, and one time someone assumed he was deceased when he was not. I think I want to also come back after our class is over and send an email to Roach Wharton and tell him that the reason Randy was not in the system as he saw it with a complete birth date was because he's still living. He might think that because Randy's still working, he's not even retired yet. But
I am.
Pardon?
He's younger than I am.
Yeah. He wanted to retire, but he decided he needed to work 5 more years before he could retire. So I definitely want to talk to Roach Wharton and find out why he thought that. So here is this list. Now, if I come over here to my name and click on my settings, and this puts me in my account, I can come to notifications in my account, and I'm going to click off text because I don't want to get a text from people, but I definitely want to receive information from Family Search. And one of the things that they will do is they will send me an email every week telling me of any changes that have been made to the people that I have marked as wanting notifications or that I'm following on Family Search. Apparently I haven't read the email from 2 days ago that's going to tell me that they think that Randy's dead. So these are the kinds of messages I can subscribe to. Information about people in my tree. If they find out something about my ancestor, like they find them in a new database or something, then they can send me a message. I can receive messages from other users. They will allow me to work as a helper, as a consultant, to help someone, and they can send me information about opportunities to do temple work for other people. Charles just told me that he just called Randy and he's alive. I hope he was thought that was humorous. Okay, so those following things I wanted you to know about. When you open up the tree and you are looking at a chart, I like my chart to be in black and white. Apparently, some people, especially those who use the computer for long hours, like to go to invert colors. And then they see them in black and they think that's easier on their eyes. I prefer them in white and gray, but it's good to know that in case you want to try it and see if you see better with the lighter colors. I want to remind you, in case you don't realize this or remember this from before, if we go to anybody anywhere in the card catalog, if there is a record that we are looking at or looking for, a specific record that has not been indexed so that we cannot search it using the usual search tab on Family Search, but we want to read it, then we can pretend we're reading a roll of microfilm and we can read it page by page. In the old days, we would turn the crank, but now we can click on the arrow key and go image by image and read those. A lot of times we think, oh, I can't read that record because it hasn't been indexed yet, but it so often is available if we come to search and go to the card catalog and look them up. Now, this was kind of new to me, and I haven't even tried it. Let's try it. Since we were doing Mark Wilden a minute ago, let's do, on Google, let's do Mark Franklin. Well, my grandpa was Mark Wilden. And it will tell me here, Google comes up with him, and it lists Family Search as the source. So if I click on that, it will take me right to his page on Family Search. Did you know that? That was new to me. I hope that that's new to somebody else and helpful to know. Another new thing on Family Search is if we want to go to records to search and search for records and look for somebody. Let's say we're looking for my grandmother, and her name when she died was Gladys Wilden, but her name at birth, so I'm going to click this alternate name. Her name at birth was Gladys Melvina Michael. And so I can search for either name for her that easily, instead of having to say, well, I want to look for a death record, and so her name when she died was such and so, or I want to look for a such and such record. I can do this. So here she is, and it pulled up Gladys Melvina Michael Wilden. And I'm just curious, which kind of a record is it in this case that it pulled up for her? It pulled up her discovery page, and it pulled up her find a grave. Often, once we get to this discovery page, often it will tell us similar records that she might be in, that she probably is in. So those are some new hints for searching on Family Search. Now let's go to memories. Now, we usually, when we go to a memory, we usually go to that person's page. So now I need to go back to Family Tree and look up Gladys Michael. And pull up her page. And it didn't pull her up without more information. Almost faster to go to that Google way, isn't it? And it did not give me on this side panel, it didn't give me the option of alternate name.
Nancy, isn't she the one on the bottom?
Was she on the bottom?
Uh-huh.
How far down? There, at the top. I don't know if she was before I clicked on that or not. Anyway, so usually when we go to her page for memories, we're going to go to here and do memories. It is also possible, do any of you use the way of going, or how often do you use memories and go to gallery? And look and see, here's a picture of Randy. I haven't titled him, or what I should do is mark him as private since he's living. Looks pretty young, doesn't he, to be dead? But so here are all of the memories that I have added. And so it says that I have added 318. I do not know if Family Search has raised the limit, but it used to be that they had a limit of 5,000 memories that you could add to yourself. Okay, who pulled this up for me? Public, private. Now, of course, because I made Randy's thing private, no one else will be able to see it except for me. That means that my brothers and sisters won't be able to see it because it has that. Okay, I'm going to go back to gallery. When I look at the gallery first, instead of looking at them by a person, then I can deal with several things at once. Like, for example, I can go through it and I can look at any that need attention of some kind. Here's one that I should add a title to. Here's one that I should add a title to, and others that I should put a title to. And by looking at this gallery page, you can get an idea of some of the things that I have thought were appropriate to be saved as memories in FamilySearch. And different people probably are going to have a little bit different standards about what they want. I have here a picture of the needle that my grandpa used to sew his sacks of potatoes together during harvest time. A pair of pillowcases that have always been sentimental to me, because when my grandmother Everett's house burned down, my grandmother Wilden made her this pair of pillowcases. And my grandmother Everett thought it was such a kind thing to do that she never would use them. And so they still haven't been used, but I think that they are very pretty and was a very kind thing of my grandma to do. A trademark of my dad was his watch. So those are some of the kinds of things that I think are appropriate for memories. As we come to my grandmother, go back to my grandmother's page, then we are reminded that memories come first as photos. And to upload a photo, we would click on upload or else on select from gallery. And then we would be able to direct our computer where we had that picture and import it. And it's the same with documents. Sometimes we have a copy of a document that isn't really available someplace else. In this case, it's a newspaper article about my grandma and grandpa's marriage. So it's good to be able to upload those. Now, what kind of stories do you think should be listed under stories? Somebody please tell me a story from somebody in their family that they did upload, that they thought would help people know about that ancestor. Diane.
My grandmother was a great storyteller, and I may have told this before, but my grandpa was an alcoholic. But, you know, bless my grandmother, she turned these stories into humor. I mean, she didn't talk about his alcoholism, but she wrote funny stories about him. And so they're hilarious and they're true because he wasn't violent or mean. He was, I guess he got he did funny things sometimes because he was kind of that, had a rough upbringing himself. But the thing is, instead of having ugly stories about grandpa, nobody knows. All they know are these funny stories that she wrote about him. And that is so cool because, you know, he straightened up, joined AA, and never drank again after I was born. And then eventually joined the church and went to the temple in his 70s. And so it's so nice that she wrote these stories, and then I put them on FamilySearch so that other people could read about grandpa and see the good side of him, and so that the hard side is not really known.
I think that's great. I don't think we should ignore the sad things. I think sometimes sad things need to be acknowledged. But especially with repentance like that, you'd much rather have the happy stories told about him. Angel, can you think of any that you've put on?
Well, I can think of one that my cousin Jeff put on.
Okay.
When my mother wrote a history of her father, and in there was he talked about D-Day and also his experiences in World War II. And so then my mom gave a copy to her aunt, who then shared it with my cousin. But because my aunt added pictures, she took credit for the whole stories, but really my mother wrote it. So it's kind of funny that my cousin put on Facebook the story about the memories that my grandfather had during World War II, which my mom said he never talked about it, but one day he said, yes, I'll talk to you about it. And so that's on Family Search, is his experiences that he had during World War II, which changes individuals. But it also, during this Memorial Day, it reflects on how many people didn't make it back and how grateful we are that we have people that will protect our country and our families. There's a whole bunch of other funny stories that I need to write, but I just haven't. So that's just one I was just thinking of.
I'm glad that story is in there, because that was a rare glimpse into that momentous event in his life.
Oh yeah.
And how nice that was recorded. I think that some of these rare glimpses we should include. So here on my grandmother's, I have kind of something similar, not nearly as potent, because the event was not quite that potent. And it looks like I should probably add a title to it. And it's very brief. The last two items that Esther bought before her marriage to Mark Everett were a headstone. Oh my goodness, I really need to correct my spelling, don't I? Were a headstone for her mother's grave and a dress for her stepmother to wear to the wedding. That illustrates her lifelong attribute of loving others. And now sometimes, we think, gee, I really ought to write the history of such and such a person. I think that sometimes we don't give ourselves credit for the little memories that are going to tell something about somebody. And so that doesn't give me that's the wrong place to, there's my edit story. We need to take time to, now I need to find the save button. Is the save button hiding underneath my okay, somebody tell me, where's the save button? Here's one that says save story.
I think you have to write something before that will pop up save story.
Well, I can't just make those two little spelling corrections.
Oh, well, that's interesting, because right there is where it should be.
Yeah.
Up at the top.
Well, help me figure out a nice title to this one sentence. Two sentences.
Kindness of Esther.
What, Diane?
Esther's loving kindness, or kindness of Esther.
Charity.
Yeah.
Charity? And now I can do save. Okay. Now, something else that I want to make sure you see is that my mother's name is Esther. And if I click over here where it says who's in this memory, and I write Esther Carilla Wilton, actually, as soon as I write Esther, the list is going to pop up and I can choose Esther Carilla Wilton. And then her mother's name was Gladys. So I typed that in, and her stepmother is Johnny May Martha. And now, because I have those three people in the story, this story will show up on Esther's page and on Gladys's page and on Johnny May Martha Stewart's page. So that is a way that we can make sure that that significant thing shows in each case. Another example of a non-life story, kind of a story that I have added is my brother Randy one day found a letter that was written to him right after my dad's funeral. One of the men that came to my dad's funeral was my dad's elementary school friend. And he wrote a letter to my brother reminiscing over the kinds of things that he and my dad did during high school. And my dad had always referred to, my dad was not LDS in high school and college, but he always referred to the things that he learned from his friend as he would call them the gospel according to, what was the friend's name? Because he understood the truths that his friend taught him, who was LDS. And so the letter of reminiscing from one 90-year-old friend to his other 90-year-old friend was very touching. And we wanted that to be in under stories from my dad's page. But then also, because I tagged his friend, it's now also on his friend's page. Now that brings up again, what are the strengths of Family Search? By having a shared family tree, we can interact between pages. So we were able to do that, list it for his friend, whereas we would not be able to do that otherwise. That is also one of the disadvantages of Family Search, is that someone else can add a memory that we hadn't thought of ourselves. I think that's why Ancestry and Family Search make such a good partnership. Now, if we were to go to more memories of my grandmother and go down past the pictures and past the documents, and we go to stories, we are going to find a biography of her. We're going to find an autobiography of her husband. We are going to find her obituary. And sometimes we get to thinking that unless we can write the whole story and put pictures to
I
it.
can't hear anything you're saying. I'm watching something.
So sometimes we think that if we can't do the whole story, we shouldn't do anything. And I want to encourage all of us that when we have a story, even if it's not huge and long, that we go ahead and include it. Family Search now has this other neat thing that we've talked about before, and that is this audio section. And how nice it is that we can add audio things. Probably we don't have as many audio things available from my grandmother's generation as we will have from our generation, but I think we should put them. This one is one of the few that I have added, and I didn't add this until recently when Angel mentioned it to us and taught us about it, is we can now take a memory, even a picture, and we can record briefly what this significance of this is. So I now have a 59-second explanation of the story of my grandmother's rose plates. Now I wish it was in my grandmother's voice, but I think that for somebody to hear that will be even more meaningful than having me write it out. If you were to write a story and you were to write a longer story, or to find a longer story, where might you find another story that you would want included on Family Search? If my sister Alice was here tonight, she would mention that for years, our sister edited a yearly newsletter about our Everett side of the family. And each year's episode highlighted one of the people in the family. And Alice has been going through those old journals and taking the stories out and putting them on under stories in Family Search. And she's put in a whole lot. And I think it's going to enrich everybody's understanding of our aunts and uncles and grandparents and great-grandparents. And whereas before only the people that received those yearly journals would have a copy, now any of the grandchildren or others who go to Family Search will be able to find them. If you were to write a story for somebody, what are some of the things that you would think would be important to put in it? Ed, maybe you should tell us what you think we should tell about or include in the story.
Yeah,
There.
see, I'm enjoying your presentation, but I'm having trouble with Zoom and a stable screen. So
Okay.
I don't have any comment right now. But thanks for asking. I can hear you and see you, but the screen is not right.
You're not seeing my page on Family Search?
I'm saying part of it.
Well, I think Zoom is a challenge to all of us. I'm getting better at it, but I don't think I have it mastered yet either. I was thinking of the significance of putting in names and dates and places along with the story, so that as somebody else watches the story, they can follow that through. Now, does anybody else have any comments? I think I am going to follow the example of people who presented at Roots Tech, and when they were finished, they quit without having to hit the hour mark. We've talked about memories quite a bit in our as we did pictures before Mother's Day and such. So I think the points I wanted to cover tonight are covered. Unless somebody wants to make comments about other things they do on Family Search or other comments about stories. Oh, Charles says he says something.
Yeah, one of the things I've done for the last couple of years is when I would remember one of my adventures when I was a kid, or I remember the story of my dad, what happened in the Pacific when he lost his leg, or how he got to be a mechanic after he got out of the hospital, or the story of my mom. She the kind of work that she did and what she did for us. As I would remember these and think, oh yeah, I can develop that. I typed them up, and one page at a time, I sent them out to everybody in the family, starting to each grandkid, each child, each parent, and just sent it out as my memories so that they know more about the family. One of the things my parents did not do was tell me a lot about their history, about when they were a kid. And while I did learn a few things, if they would have told me more, I would write them up. And at least in this way, I am telling family a little bit about family. And otherwise, they wouldn't know. And with the computer, with the ability to email as well as to copy them and send a copy of each story to everybody. Because I've got a printer. And the first thing I did was buy like 40,
We have a lot of grandkids.
40 or more one-inch binders, three-ring binders, and I put their name on it and the title of what it was, and I sent that out. So now when I send them one of my memories, and for some reason I came up with Poppy's Perks. As a granddad, I'm called Poppy, and these are things that I remember, and I'm sending them out so everybody, so that they know more than they would if I hadn't spoken up, so they know something about the family. I wish I knew more about my dad when he was young, some of the things he did, but he was often quiet, and so I can't tell him everything, but I can tell him a few things, and we can spread the word to what the family is.
Now, I'm very pleased that Charles has done this with his Poppy's Perks. And started out, he sent one about every week, and then it went less frequent. But I think that our grandchildren enjoy those, and they have, since he gave them the binder to put them in, they have them gathered together in one place. And as I pulled up his dad, I noticed that he has not put those stories on Family Search, and he certainly ought to. And just to share, here are some of the newspaper articles about Charles's dad's adventures during World War II. And here's a story that a relative found that I was just thrilled to find. It explains that the Japanese defensive strategy for the island of Cebu in the Philippines during World War II was to cover the whole island with landmines, so that the Allies could not take the island, because they would be able to get on the island because of the landmines. And that's how Charles's dad lost his leg. It is, as we took the island, they had to walk on the track left by the big tanks, and the man next to his dad got tired of staying on that little narrow track and left the track, stepped on the mine, and as it blew up and killed him, it also injured Charles's dad and caused him to lose his legs. Now, here is the picture that I showed earlier of the four friends with the 3 legs. And that needs to be available for grandchildren and others to see. Another picture that is very important for us to have is, and I certainly hope we have one on here, is Charles's dad before he lost his legs. And I don't think there's one in here of Charles's dad before he lost his legs. And well, here he is with his sisters. But we have a picture, a more post picture of him with his legs. And I never knew him, of course, with his legs. Charles never knew him with his legs. And so that's kind of an important memory to have, is of him with his legs. And at the same time, Charles made sure that on our living room wall is a picture of him in his wheelchair. Because pictures like this don't show that lifelong chair that he lived in. And I think this is the picture that Charles put on the wall. Because that's an important part of Leroy's life that needs to be listed on Family Search on his pictures. So now Charles has assignments for this next week of things he needs to do. Okay, next week, I am starting a series of working with Family Search, and as it overlaps Ancestry, we'll also talk about Ancestry. And so we're kind of going to start next week with the very beginning. We'll start with getting your account, choosing your settings, getting your account at Ancestry, and how to populate your tree on Family Search, and how to populate your tree on Ancestry, and so we're going to work together starting at the beginning next week, and we'll probably do that through the rest of the summer. The getting started, what you need to know to work most efficiently with Family Search. You can certainly work without knowing everything, but maybe I'll be able to pull some things together so that we can work a little more efficiently and get a little bit more done in the same amount of time.
Nancy, if you have extra time today, could you maybe show them where military records are, since tomorrow is a military type thing?
Do you want military on fold 3, or do you want military on Ancestry?
On Family Search, on Family Search.
Well, other than going to records, and if you know Diane, maybe you should be doing this, because maybe you can do it quicker than I could.
Well, like for example, the draft cards, the draft registration cards.
Okay, so if we wanted draft cards, let's see if we can find World War II draft registration cards.
You might have to start with United States.
Or here they are, state by state alphabetically.
But if you put in United States, you might have it by the general list.
Well, we'll try
there it
that.
is. There's United States right there down there.
Okay, draft registration cards. Now, apparently not all of them have been indexed, because it is telling us that we should look at these through by browsing. That would be like reading through the microfilms, one page at a time.
Maybe the other one that was listed there is indexed.
But if we were to go instead by draft registration and go to Utah, well, did I lose Utah? No, still going alphabetically. Okay. ST Utah. And it has been indexed. So we could search. Now, I don't have an ancestor in Utah during World War II. Does somebody have a name they want to pull up?
Grant Thatcher.
Also, Nancy, there's two things for the World War II United States. The other one is indexed, just so they know that.
Oh, okay. Grant Webster Thatcher.
No, it's the Lisenby one.
It's what?
It's the one underneath it, the Lisenby.
Grant Lisenby Thatcher.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, now this is showing us the indexed page. But if we click here, we will be able to see the original document.
Yes.
And this will be what he filled out as he went to the draft board for World War II. And it tells us identification. He's got a scar on his left wrist. Mrs. Theo Thatcher will always know where he's at.
Yes.
He was discharged from the Army in 1945. That's interesting information.
Yeah.
If we were to go back to my dad's page, we could see what his papers look like from World War II, because they are under documents. I sure thought they were in documents.
Is it listed as a source?
Maybe. Let me look again under stories. Okay. Not as likely sources, since this is one of the ones that I would have self-entered. Draft registration cards probably had been indexed. Okay, Army enlistment records. That's not a copy of the ones that I have. However, it is on Family Search. And if we look over here, we will also see related items. We will see that he's at a church census record. His draft registration card is in Family Search. Find a grave index is in Family Search. His obituary, and that these things have been attached to him with his Family Search number. Now, well, let's do this one other thing. Let's go to fold 3. When you fold a flag, you fold it in half lengthwise, then you fold it in half lengthwise, and then you fold it in triangle shapes up to the beginning, and then you tuck in the end. And that makes a triangle, and that is the proper way to fold a flag. So this company has renamed itself, and they now call themselves Fold 3. And because this is a Memorial Day military weekend, Fold 3 has made their military records free for this weekend. They do this a couple of times a year. And if we were to search for, let's look for, I don't remember looking for my dad lately. I don't remember what is listed for him. But the wonderful thing about Fold 3 records is that, well, okay, so here we have his draft registration cards, his Social Security index, and then more registration cards. For our further back ancestors, it would usually tell us it would give us a copy of all of the records that were listed in their pension application. So we might find out in their pension application who all of their children are, who their wife was, who additional relatives were that were quoted or listed in their pensions. And we can sometimes solve genealogy problems by looking up military records of veterans. And they usually are going to be several pages long. If I were to look up instead of my dad, if I were to look up, I'm not sure if he's here, but let's try. Oh, I know William S. Michael. I know William S. Michael is here. Now I'm going to say that he's not going to show, but. Okay, I'm going to go back to the search button, and I'm going to put in William S. Michael. And William S. Michael's pension record, the way that it lists his children clarifies questions that people have had about who are his children. And one of the things that's been very confusing to some people is the census records, as they have been put on Ancestry and Family Search, are not, the pages of the census in which he is listed are not in order. And so he and his wife and his first 3 children are listed on one page, and on the next page it just says comma and lists 2 more children, which would make the census reader think that those other 2 children were his if they didn't look at the page number at the top of the page. Those 2 children have no relationship whatsoever to him, but because they're listed in the census on the page after him, people have read those and assumed they were his children and had them baptized and sealed to him as his children. And so the fact that they are not listed as his children in his census record is helpful. So here is his Civil War service record, and then his Veterans Administration payment cards, his pension payment cards. One of them will also tell the pension application. But so here, if I go along this bottom side, I can go from page to page to page, and I can follow through his military record. And one of the things it will tell me is about his injuries to his eyes that almost blinded him. It is not listed under his payment roll, but he was a prisoner of war during the Civil War for 100 days, and that's listed there. And if it weren't for this record, I would know he was a soldier, but I wouldn't have as much of the story about what kind of a thing that he did. This also says I should see the combined service records of volunteer Union soldiers who served in the state of Missouri. And so this takes me to this. So fold 3 is mostly military records, and it costs, you have to have a subscription to go to fold 3, or else go to the Family History Center and look at it under the, Diane, what's it called? Patron,
Premium sites.
portal, the
The
Family
portal.
History portal. And so anybody that goes to Family History Center can look at it for free, but otherwise you need to either have a subscription or else do it during one of the military holidays when fold 3 makes it free for the holiday. So if you have military relatives between now and tomorrow night, tonight is the time to look them up. Diane mentioned look at other military records. When I used Ancestry, when I was trying to find out the military histories of my uncles who fought in World War II, because 4 of my mother's brothers fought in World War II. And so I was having some trouble finding information about them. So I searched on Ancestry, and Ancestry has a very different collection of things than FamilySearch does. And by looking under military records, I was able to find my one uncle's picture of him in uniform. His family has no pictures of him in uniform, but there's one on Ancestry. The other uncle, family history said that when he first joined the Army, he ran away from home in high school and joined the Army, and decided he didn't like the Army, so he decided to leave the Army, and that's called going AWOL, and that's illegal. And so that story everybody in the family knew, but not everybody in the family knew that when World War II got going strong, he turned himself in, joined again, and they sent him to Europe to some pretty rough assignments, including the Battle of the Bulge. And we were able to get his service number and basic information about his service during World War II by doing a general search, not even the military search, but doing the general search on Ancestry, which showed us that he came into the United States on the cruise ship I think it was Queen Mary, not the Queen Elizabeth, but it listed his name of all the soldiers that he came on that cruise ship back home to the United States. The British government was so appreciative that they let their big ships be used to get the soldiers home. And he was listed there along with his military ID number. And his military ID number then gave us information to many other records, including all of the different places that he'd served and the different awards that he'd earned. So we might think that we have to look up a special military site or write to the National Archives to get military information. And we can just find it so many other ways. We just have to have the same attitude that we would have if we went to a library. And if we went to a library, we wouldn't say, well, I'm only going to look in books that are titled military history. But instead, when we go to a library, we look at all the different things we can think of. And that's the same way we do when we're searching for a record on Ancestry or Family Search. And that's why the plain search button worked when military records didn't work for my Uncle Don. My husband just pointed out to me that it is 8:02, that I did not finish early like I said I was going. Elsie, would you say our closing prayer? You'll have to figure out the unmute button again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elsie.